So we are here with Miss Nia.
Hello.
It's funny. We just actually started talking about how Nia feels like she needs to do public speaking classes.
I do.
And I need you guys to come and get my back and telling her that she do not need public speaking at all. She speaks extremely well. How are you today, Nia?
I am very well. I'm nervous.
I've been waiting. You're not nervous.
Yes.
Don't let her fool you. She's not nervous.
I'm anxious.
Anxious. That's a better word. That's a better word. So I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you because it's been a joy for us having you as a client.
Thank you. Likewise.
Watching your audience just grow like literally overnight. Like we just took some steroids and injected it into the Facebook and the Instagram.
For sure.
What's been your feelings? Like, what's been your feedback? How have people responded to you personally about everything that's been happening?
It's been everything I expected. However, some things I didn't expect. Like it was just.
I want to know, like, what are some of the things you didn't expect to happen?
An overflow of inboxes from. Male admirers, I would say. I received pictures, I received videos. I try to respond just to say hello and be nice, but it was it was almost like I needed to hire an assistant. But other than that, I haven't had any negative reviews. Things have been well so far. It has generated a few business leads, which is good. So I'm able to reach out and expand my network a lot more than just word of mouth or just me being in Detroit and Atlanta. So that's a good thing. That was the whole.
So let's talk about the business.
Sure.
What exactly is a nonprofit grant writer?
A nonprofit grant writer typically works with a nonprofit organization who is looking to raise additional funding, either for their organization or for programs. What I do specifically is, the grants that I write large grants, $1 million grants or more.
Right.
And to obtain those type of grants, you have to be in existence for so long. You have to have at least 2 to 3 years of your 990s filed with the IRS.
Okay, stop right there.
Sure.
What's a 990?
A 990 is a tax return specifically for nonprofit organizations.
Got it. Okay, go ahead.
And as well as that, most large grant funders also look for audited financial statements. And this, a lot of people aren't aware of what this is, but this is typically a third-party CPA, Certified Public Accounting Firm.
Okay.
And they come in and they oversee the organization. So they oversee the CFO, the president, the day-to-day operations, and they want to make sure that none of the funding is at risk.
Got it.
No one receiving funds can just run off with the money. And
right.
So, and that also, having that done and having a clean audit gives your grant funders more trust in you, and then they'll be more amped to give you whatever you're looking for.
Got it. So
very important.
So your ideal client, obviously you work with major size businesses.
Yes.
But you could also work with small companies and individuals as well, right?
Yes. That's what my focus is now. I want to work with small emerging nonprofits to show them how to get there.
Got it.
I think that if you start small and start, from the ground up and get everything in place, get your planning in order and things of that nature.
Right.
By the time you've done your few years and you've got your tax filings done, and
you can go after the big money.
Absolutely, you can go after the big money. And one good thing, I'm working on some workshops, and I'm still tweaking it because I'm adding more information as I talk to people, just to give them everything that they need so that they can take it back, like an action plan to their organization and get things done. But one component that I am going to add is we'll talk about audited financial statements. And I'm seeking out a CPA, if there's anybody out there who'd like to work with me, just to have them come in so that the organizations that come through can ask them everything they want to ask, pretty much free of charge.
So for the CPA to be a part of the workshop?
Absolutely.
Got it.
Just a small session, just so you can give them more insight and maybe some costs, what they would expect as far as expenses.
So, in terms of the small business, because I think a lot of your audience would probably be small, but at least the audience that we've helped you create.
Absolutely.
In terms of those individuals, you will act sort of like a consultant.
Yes.
You know, you would provide kind of introduction to the aspects or what's involved.
Absolutely.
In the process of getting the grant. Because I think a lot of the questions, or at least a lot of the things that I've seen come through so far, is just questions about, is it possible for my business to get a grant?
Absolutely.
If I wanted to get a grant, how do I start the process of getting a grant?
Correct.
You know, so I look at this as a really kind of like niche situation, you know, where people need, like, this is information that we wouldn't normally have access to.
Absolutely.
And you've done all the homework.
Yeah, I've been there in most of these nonprofit organizations, or in most of their shoes. And I tried to seek out information. I couldn't find anything online. I would have to actually have the organization pay for a class that might have been $1,000,
right,
for me to go and take those courses. But I did identify there is a huge gap. A lot of these organizations, they do charge a nice penny, and I don't knock them at all. I've gotten a lot of my knowledge from there.
Right.
However, you do have organizations who can't afford that's not in their budget right now.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do, I'm not trying to compete with them in any type of way, but what I want to do is give them that insight. You know, when the grant funder or when the education provider talks about goals and outcomes, I want to tell them how to get the goals, how to pull it out, you know, because a lot of us can talk about our business all day,
right,
but when it comes to putting it on paper, you know, it's mainly up here. So I want to help and guide them from not only my standpoint, but just from what a grant funder looks for.
Got it. Okay, so that actually, you just educated me a little bit, because that opens up a completely different, so you have the process and the step-by-step that's involved in getting the grant, but then you're going to help prepare the business for the expectation of the person that's actually looking at the business.
Absolutely.
Okay, so so if a person has an idea for a business, then they would need to basically go to your website, asknia.com.
Absolutely.
So that they can book some time with you,
yes,
so that you can help them get their ducks in a row.
Yes, I absolutely would. I'll prepare an outline, but it's pretty much just cut and dry on the things that you need to do, and I'm working on some things to kind of gauge how you can get your problem statement together, because a lot of funders will say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Okay. That's where most of us are like.
Got it. Yeah, that's something probably like the most.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to teach them how to bring that out. And this stuff can go back to the board. This is stuff that they can talk about at their board meetings. It's part of strategic planning. Right.
Now, what about the smaller companies that don't necessarily have a board yet? Like, what if it's a solopreneur, or maybe you know, like a company like ours? Like we've been doing nonprofit type initiatives for probably the last 8 years.